Happy 1st of March, people. I'm down here at the allotment. I've got a couple of jobs that I want to do. There are blue skies and a few clouds, but nothing menacing, all looking nice and fluffy and white, which is great. So a couple of jobs to do this afternoon. I'm going to be potting up dahlias. So I've got the 3 existing dahlias that I had last year. So that was a dahlia that I bought that was basically dying. It was on sort of the dead plant shelf, and it was a red dahlia. I've got the one from Chatsworth that was part of their flower displays last year, and I took one home, so I've got one of those, and I've also got the pom-pom dahlia, which will be going into its 3rd year this year, so that'll be being potted up as well. At first, when I started to grow dahlias, I really thought that they were a bit faffy. I didn't quite understand why people love them so much. But the dahlia that we got from Chatsworth, which I don't know the variety, has really changed my mind, I'm not going to lie. The blooms were just absolutely beautiful, and yeah, I just fell in love. So I have now ordered a further 8 from Thompson and Morgan over the last couple of months. So in this box we have a Dahlia Blue Boy, a Dahlia Major Fire, a Dahlia Pulp Fiction, good film, and a Dahlia Melody Mambo. So they will be being potted up as well today. As the second box here, which includes Dahlia My Love, Dahlia Kennemerland, I'm probably not saying that right, I'm not going to lie, Dahlia Gallery Art Deco, and Dahlia Myrtle's Folly. So looking forward to getting those in some pots with soil, and I'll probably put them in sort of the storage greenhouse to my right for now, because that's the greenhouse that will have all of the tomatoes in, etc. But obviously there's no tomatoes yet, so by the time the dahlias actually go in the ground in May, and then the tomatoes go into that greenhouse, it'll cross over quite nicely. So that's one job that I'm doing today. Another job I'm doing is I've got a buddleia at the top of the plot that needs pruning. So buddleias will grow on new growth, so I'm going to get that pruned today, as during the summer months it's brilliant to watch all the butterflies on there. And thirdly, I'm going to be potting on some nasturtiums. Now these are nasturtiums Tom Thumb. They've grown really well at home, but it's now time to pot them on and keep them in the greenhouse. As you may know if you've seen any of my Instagram posts, I do have a bit of a love-hate relationship for nasturtiums. When I first took over this plot, at the top, in sort of the first 3 beds, nasturtiums just took over. The previous plot holder must have sown some seeds at some point, maybe for the red bull flowers, maybe because the fact that they're really good for bees, but they just took over, and I was weeding them and weeding them and weeding them, and I just could not get rid of them. So much so at one point I thought they were bindweed, because I just could not understand how they just kept on coming back. However, they are edible, so I do want to grow them. So I have grown these plants this year, and I am going to put them probably in the raised bed just to the left of the greenhouse, to try and keep them contained, so they don't spread around. I'm not going to be putting them in any of the beds, or the main beds on the allotment, because I don't want a repeat of 20 Was it 2018? So I don't want to repeat of that. So yes, they are the jobs today. I'd like to do a couple more things if I get time. I'm going to be here until probably dark. So yeah, let's crack on. So here is the buddleia that I was talking about that needed pruning. Most varieties of buddleia will flower on new growth. So this particular beast, in the size that it is, we can cut this back pretty hard and it will flower again. It likes to be pruned every year to keep it fresh. Otherwise you get sort of very leggy stems at the bottom and all of the blooms at the top, and you can't see it, especially if you're 5'2" like me. So I'm just going to start by pruning. So spring is the best time to do this, so February or March. As I say, this is for most types of buddleia. There are a few exceptions, so if you are unsure, always Google the variety that you've got and you should be able to find out whether or not it is a good time to prune. But this is a buddleia davidi, so it's good for spring pruning. Should have brought my loppers for some of the stems. They're quite thick, but thankfully I sharpened these before I came out. So hopefully that will be enough. Apparently you can cut it right down to the ground, but I don't want to. I think that should be enough. See how it goes. At this stage, dahlias are really quite easy to pot up. I don't use anything in the compost, I literally just use multi-purpose compost. You then take your dahlia tuber, like so. You check it over, make sure that there are no squidgy bits, any that are mouldy, anything like that, and then you literally dunk it into the compost so that basically you're just covering the tubers, and then you label it. Make sure you know which one it is, and then you leave it in the greenhouse, and with any luck, in sort of a couple of weeks time you'll start seeing green shoots, and then they'll be good to plant out once the last frost has gone. So in Sheffield, that's usually mid-May, I would say. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing now for all 13 of them. Hello there, it's the 28th of March. We are nearly 1 week into restricted movement due to the coronavirus having come to the shores of the UK and unfortunately making people ill, which is not great. Obviously, as it stands at the moment, it's already sort of moved from sort of China across into Europe. It's also moved, you know, sort of further west into America as well, and it's really not very nice at all. And I'm wishing obviously your families and your friends and your loved ones, I'm hoping that they're all well and that we come through this intact. Also, big shout out today and for the rest of the days that it takes, for the rest of the days of time, to be fair, to the NHS, to the police, to firefighters, paramedics, and also to those people that are keeping our services going, supermarkets, you know, bin collections, you name it, you know, they are sort of the heroes in all of this. I work in an industry, I work in property, so as it stands at the moment, I am able to work from home. Whether or not that changes or not is a different matter, but hey ho, it is what it is. But you know, I can sort of work in the safety of my own home and sort of keep my risk to a minimum. But those, you know, people that are out there working and, you know, putting themselves into sort of risk way, you know, huge respect to you guys and thank you very much. Now, this video I am doing from the greenhouse. Allotments are your form of exercise, or can be classed as your form of exercise, so happy days. I have come down to just sow a couple of things. Just want to sow some kale here in the greenhouse and potentially some Swiss chard as well, which I'm going to do in a minute. I'm just going to take a quick walk up the allotment with you as well, just to show you what's sort of going on. At the moment, the weather, the nighttime temperatures, like daytime temperatures are lovely, but nighttime temperatures are actually quite cold, and I think probably a bit colder than what is usually sort of expected at this time of year. So at the moment, a lot of plants that I had hoped to sort of be putting out in the ground sort of this time moving into the early April, probably going to have to go out in the ground a little bit later than I was expecting. So, but you know, as gardeners, we've just kind of got to roll with the punches when it comes to this sort of thing. So at the moment, really all I've got in the ground are sorry, I'm just watching behind you, there's some beautiful gold crests at the feeder. I'd spin you around if I could, but that will scare them away, so I'm a little distracted, sorry. So yeah, what I've got in the ground at the moment are shallots, onions, and still some Swiss chard. The Swiss chard, no, rainbow chard, sorry, has been in the ground since last year, so it's done really well. Other than that, it is just literally flowers, bulbs and things like that. So hopefully, providing we can keep on getting to our allotments and it is classed as our one form of exercise, we can keep on going with coming down here and obviously growing our own fruit and vegetables. So fingers crossed. Right, okay, let's get on with today. So I'm just going to make a couple of sowings. So I'm going to sow some kale. Sorry, I've already opened the packet once, which is dwarf green curled kale. I'm going to sow some Swiss chard. It's Bright Lights variety. And I'm going to sow some beetroot, Detroit to Crimson Globe. So first of all, I'm going to sow the kale and the chard, and I'm going to use these coir pellets. I've grown them in these before and it worked really well. So let's do this. So firstly, before we sort of move forward, is we have to rehydrate the coir pellets. So I'm going to use this plastic tub that I've brought from home. totally reusable. I think this was a food container at one point, and since it's carried bird seed, it's done this a few times. I do like to get my use out of plastic if I'm going to have plastic around. Fill this up with water. Okay. And I'm going to just put the next few in for the Swiss chard. I'm just going to pop that to one side for now. Let's try that one. Okay, so once your coir pellets have rehydrated, I still use a dibber just to dip just a space for the seed to go in the top hole. I'm going to do the kale first. I sowed this kale last year as well. It worked really well. It lasted for quite a while. In fact, it really overwintered very well. So I have not got Monty Don's methods down very good. He has a pencil method for small seeds, which seemingly works very well, but I just go straight for my hands. But the problem is I'm not a very graceful person, so I tend to sow more than I mean to. So there we go, and it goes. There we go. That's all I'm saying for now. So then we just stick the soil back over, which I think is actually the trickiest bit. I might try to see if that works better. I don't have very delicate hands. I'm a bit of a sledgehammer. So yeah. Then I will label this, and then I will stick them on these shelves and wait to see if they germinate. When they do and they're ready to be planted out, you can literally stick the entire thing into the ground. The roots will come through and eventually it'll either disintegrate completely, or yeah, the roots will just be will just go out into the soil there, so you don't have to worry too much. And then obviously you can reuse your tray for the next batch of sowing. So for my next sowing, I'm going to do beetroot. I love beetroot, roasted, boiled, and especially pickled. I love a lot of pickled stuff. This year, for the first time, I'm trying to grow my own gherkins, much to my husband's delight, who isn't a fan of gherkins at all. Oops, I'm not doing a very good job of this, am I? So I'm going to do this in a seed tray with peat-free compost, as with everything in on this allotment. And I'm basically going to fill this up, put it on, lay the seeds on, obviously put a bit more compost on and leave it like that. When the seedlings are old enough, you can then prick them out and pop them on, which is the method that I've been doing well for the past 2 years that I've grown beetroot. So just going to put, I'm not using at this stage any additional drainage bits and bobs, to be honest. Some people might be looking at me horrified the way that I kind of that is so a little bit haphazardly, I must admit. I'm not always someone with as I say, a lot of sort of patience. That's way too many. There we go. So the packet does say that you should sow thinly where they are to crop, but I have sown these, as I say, for the last 2 years in the greenhouse, and then potted them on, and then finally put them outside, and that hasn't been an issue for me. And I literally, this is what I do, I sprinkle along because I'm going to be potting them on anyways. There's quite a few seeds in there, and then I think that's a runaway seed, there we go. Then literally top dress with compost. Water, stick in the greenhouse, and then pot on when the seedlings are about 1 inch high usually, and that's when I pop them on into individual cells, and then wait till they have developed a good root system, and then I put them in the ground. So as you can see here, I've got some shallots, germ shallots in the ground. I started those off in the greenhouse and then put them out for about 2 weeks ago, and just before I put them out I hadn't actually checked the weather forecast, and the night that I put them out it was actually -2 here in Sheffield. Thankfully, as you can see, they look like they have escaped unscathed from the cold temperatures. So you will notice that the daffodils are in full swing in the wildlife patch. The other plants that are coming up are the alliums and the foxgloves and the hollyhocks. You will also notice that the wildlife pond has come to a bit of a standstill. The liner that I bought just wasn't right. I wasn't happy with it, so that's currently folded up in the second greenhouse at the moment. I am looking into alternatives. I'm trying to work out what I want to do with that.